Hey everyone, Dakota Frandsen here, specialist of the strange. I just wanted to come with you real quick about potentially doing your own podcast. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? Maybe you got a lot of questions like how do I record? How do I get my show into all these apps that are out there? How can I make money? There are probably several thousand other questions about getting this show off the ground that you have been formulating and communicating in your mind. And I'm here to tell you that there is a very simple answer to this. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing your show. And best of all, it is 100% free. Get all the perks from the other guys without having to pay for subscription fees. And best of all, it is easy. And in fact, Anchor can match you up with sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast right now, which means you can get paid doing what you love. Isn't that the fucking dream, my friends? In fact, that's actually what I'm trying to do right now by reading this ad for you. It is amazing. It helps ease the process for guests, putting on music, whatever you want to do. So if you want to start your podcast, make some money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and several other fabulous people already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. And I cannot wait to hear you on the air.
September 20th, 2019. It seems like we managed to avoid a major disaster, as the events that started out as a Facebook joke unfolded into a rather underwhelming result. This weekend, law enforcement agencies at the local, state, and federal levels have been preparing for an ambush for people looking to enter the grounds of probably one of the worst kept secrets within the American defense systems, Area 51. So far, based on the live updates I've been watching all day, the outcome has again been rather underwhelming. Only 2 people have been arrested for trying to enter the grounds. Others who tried to enter the main gates walked away without incident after given stern warnings. Now, that isn't to say that a few thousand people aren't enjoying what is being called alien stock, music festivals that started around the event. But what about the facility? What is it about Area 51 that causes so much interest? Are there, in fact, extraterrestrials hiding within the Nevada desert? What could be going on inside the base? Is all the talk conspiracy theorists toss around of extraterrestrials actually credible in some resort? What is the deal about Area 51? That's what we're going to talk about tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into this. So is there actually anything at Area 51? For this episode, we are actually going to be looking at information about its origins, how Area 51 came to be, what its uses were for, and how extraterrestrials came into the picture. Perhaps most importantly, whether or not the idea of E.T. staying out at a top secret Air Force base has any credibility whatsoever. The book we are going to look into is titled Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. Author Annie Jacobson managed to interview over 70 people who had first-hand knowledge of the facility, including 32 individuals who lived and worked at Area 51. Essentially, this book is probably your safest way of gathering comprehensive information about the base without having to get top secret clearance. It is in this book that Jacobson goes into detail how the base came about, the history behind its methods, the fact that the many conspiracies out there were promoted by government officials in order to help spread disinformation and reduce credibility of potential eyewitness testimonies. And we are also going to attempt to profiling Bob Lazar, who was credited for bringing the base into the limelight. Why do I think we should go into this? Because this is Area 51 is clearly one of those cases where somebody heard something, then people just went crazy about it without actually trying to look into what's going on. So what's the story behind Area 51? Essentially, it was intentionally built during the 1950s in order to test aircraft, espionage, counterterrorism methods, and more. Basically, anything that the United States Defense Department has worked on over the years, alongside members of intelligence committees, this is where they all come together to test out basically anything and everything that they are involved in. Area 51 has also been used for counterterrorism tactics with foreign paramilitary partners. Area 51 is where many members, including Osama bin Laden, have come to the United States to receive military training in order for the CIA to get involvement in foreign affairs. Yes, if you look far back enough in history, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and quite a few other terrorist organizations have roots within the American Central Intelligence Agency. And Area 51 was literally started up as a remote desert location where the government can easily fly these people in without being noticed, test out anything they wanted without outside interference. This is all stuff you need to remember for the rest of this program. Remember that the CIA was heavily involved within Area 51's origins. In fact, the whole reason it was founded is because President Eisenhower assigned Richard Bissell from the CIA to find the most remote, most secretive place in the United States they could find and work on the U-2 spy plane so it'd be away from prying eyes, Soviet or anybody else who might catch interest. A lot of early UFO sightings in the area were simply aircraft, and to this day, as a matter of fact, simply aircraft that were being tested by the United States. And a lot of these tests, the grounds are already considered classified because they were also nuclear device testing grounds. Which, if you really think about it, at the time when this was all coming together, it was the perfect plan. Because, sorry about that. I do apologize, I forgot to turn down my notifications again. Seems to be a bad habit of mine. So essentially, who would bother coming into this base? There were literal nuclear bombs going off, which made it perfect to test spy equipment, train for counterterrorism measures, and basically keep all eyes off of it. However, once word got out about the base's location, because this Area 51 managed to go under the radar for about 30 years until the Bob Lazar interview. And that's when people started to look into it, try to get a look at what was going on. And there were things about the grounds that a lot of people obviously did not take into consideration. They tried lying, keeping this base under wraps for so many years. But up until a certain point, they forgot to check something. They forgot to check vantage points from the mountains. So what do I mean about the mountains? Well, what's a picture you get in your mind when you think about top secret military bases? By the time you get to the main gates, you see a fenced off area, then what seems like miles and miles of nothing, right? For quite some time, this wasn't the case for the Groom Lake facility around Area 51. In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is that Area 51 is part of a testing range within Nevada that's roughly the size of Connecticut. It's only a small portion of the big picture. With Area 51, a lot of people back in the early days, when the word started getting around about it, could be able to climb several of the hills and mountains in the area, find themselves a nice little perch, and look down into the base and see what was going on. And that's how a lot of rumors came to be. It wasn't until Bob Lazar came out in a news interview. Essentially, and I know I sound like I'm rushing through a lot of information, but when it comes to situations like Area 51, there's a lot of details to go through. A lot of BS we still gotta sort through if we're really gonna understand what's actually going on. As I mentioned before, the base was initially started up for espionage programs. However, recent developments within the last few years, recent confessions from the United States government, including the latest gimbal UFO footage taken from Navy pilots, Confessions from government officials have said, you know what? Yes, we have been looking into UFOs and we have been trying to replicate some of that technology. But quite frankly, as far as everything that's really going on, we have no clue. Bob Lazar, a lot of details that are coming forward about these UFO revelations pretty much match up what he said. A lot of details he shared back in the day are lining up with what's being revealed to the public now. Now, some conspiracy theorists say that this is part of a grand disclosure pattern to where the United States government and several other agencies around the globe slowly start to introduce the general public to the idea that we are in fact not alone in the universe. But the reason I wanted to go into this is when you really think about it. If you're worried about potentially going to war, you want to make sure that you have the best tools for the job. If you're wanting to outperform someone, you're going to want to make sure you can surpass them in every way. And unfortunately, some of this logic has come to making fancier toys. When the UFO phenomenon really started, the United States government had very little clue of what was going on. And this is something I've been trying to tell people for years. They're claiming, oh, the military knows this, oh, the CIA knows this, oh, the FBI knows this. Yeah. There's information that says they do. They've been researching it for quite some time. However, the people we're asking, the people who are harassing about these things, they don't have the clearance in order to take a look at these things. And if they did, they could be very well risking their own lives and the lives of everyone they love by coming forward. But I wanted to go into this Area 51 discussion for a bit. Not only because really it is an interesting topic, nonetheless. And quite frankly, there seems to be a few things that not a lot of people are considering when it comes to operations in the area. Yes, freaky aircraft are spotted in the area all the time. However, because of the mentality of a lot of military leaders have, which is comparable to a little kid seeing fancy toys on TV, they might say, we need to learn how to develop this technology. Their mentality, however, is more like, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one. Tell me I'm wrong. Another thing you have to consider is that unless these extraterrestrials and the species that are out there can be a completely different, this could be an entirely new sub-series for this show. Unless the extraterrestrial species that are out there who have the technological capabilities to spot us in their own observable universe. Essentially, any species that is technologically advanced enough to have their own versions of SETI. There's some severe limitations here. Let's just observe for the Milky Way, for example. Now, before I continue, I want to say, for those of you who may not be listening to this program through my YouTube channel, and who haven't subscribed yet, head over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel, Specialist of the Strange, because I'm going to start posting follow-up videos in order to go into further detail about whatever topics I discuss on the show. This is going to be the first episode that has one of these follow-ups. When it comes to spotting other civilizations within our galaxy, there's quite a few limitations that not a lot of people are considering. When we look at the stars above, even though this is not advisable, when we look at our own sun, when we look at our own moon, there's essentially a delay, depending on how far away an object is from our world. Now the moon, there's a little bit of a delay, but there's not much. If we were to see if a bomb were to go off on the moon, we would see it relatively soon. Now, the distance between the Earth and the Sun, light, on average, takes about 5 minutes to go from the Sun to here on Earth. Faraway stars do not, and even with our most high-tech telescopes that we have in operation right now, they are not showing us their current state. The types, what we are seeing could easily be a few thousand, a few million years old. So there was a civilization that was born within that time frame and gave off enough of an electromagnetic disturbance, like how the invention of radio has affected life here on Earth. That's probably a poor way to put it. Essentially signals we have sent out through radio waves. By the time a civilization has reached that point, basically what I'm saying is that if they are born within that time frame, say a star is a few million, like 3 million light years away, and it wasn't until about 3,000 years ago, I'm just spitballing numbers here, that a civilization has become technologically evolved enough to develop their own version of SETI. And say, for example, that's the only one other civilization within our universe. Now, they're a bit more advanced, so they had a bit more time to process, so maybe they thought of another way. But let's not go into that yet. Let's just say they are at the similar technological standing that we are today. To them, the rest of the universe is practically going to be empty silence. It's going to look like nobody's out there. To put it into perspective of how far our radio waves have gone through our galaxy alone, I want you all to imagine a large-sized pizza. I'm trying to think of something that would have relatively the same dimensions no matter where you go, that anybody could easily visualize. This is the reason why I'm going to start doing the follow-up videos that I mentioned. But imagine you have a a large size pizza. And that pizza is the Milky Way. It's our galaxy. Our planet alone, not the signals it gives off, but our planet alone would be invisible because it would look so small. It would essentially be a molecule that you would need a telescope in order to see. Our radio frequencies would be the diameter, how should I put this? Think of a slice of pepperoni you'll see on a pizza that you get from like Domino's or Pizza Hut. Not very big, right? Or, better yet, the size of a lid in a tub of chapstick. Our signal on Earth would roughly be the size of a small tub of chapstick compared to the whole pizza. Now, let's sit. Now, our world is going to be located somewhere along the crust. And now let's say another planet is closer to the center. They're not going to see jack shit just because of how much time it takes for Earth, for signals from Earth to reach out into the rest of the cosmos. Because yes, it still does move. There is still a bit of medium in space for sound, light, to travel. It's very little, but it's still out there. So if that's the case, where the hell are the aliens coming from? You could probably toss aside 99.9999% of UFO sightings as illegitimate, misidentified aircraft, or just flat out hoaxes. But what about the real ones? The ones where even the most brilliant of scientists, the most skilled of aircraft technicians are going, what the fuck is that? Where the hell are these guys coming from? Well, there's another theory that gets tossed out around there. And what's perhaps even weirder about it is that there are official FBI documents that back it up. The extraterrestrials we are seeing are not from another planet. In the sense we would think of, little green men from Mars. They're from another world. Potentially from our own future, or even in another universe entirely. Before the break, we discussed that the ideas behind extraterrestrials being from another planet, in the sense of, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, just as a kind of poor example, but it works anyway. The odds of that taking place are significantly unlikely. Now, there are some research groups that speculate that life on Earth, intelligent life on Earth, may have had influence from extraterrestrial intelligence that used to exist on Mars. As there is some evidence that might suggest that Mars could have been suitable for life. There could have once been life on Mars. But some sort of catastrophe happened to turn it into the planet we see it today. So, originally, as I speculated it to be, in some sense, some people have suggested the idea maybe they are extra-dimensional. Maybe they come from other dimensions. Some conspiracy theorists have suggested this. This is an idea that's also proposed in certain ghost phenomenon. How should I put this? Now, basically, when I first heard these ideas, to be completely honest with you, I was not getting the impression of someone who legitimately believed or even had any sort of evidence to back the idea that they were trying to portray. Essentially, what the impression I got is someone who was trying to sound smart and scam people out of something. Money, time, whatever the situation may be. And unfortunately, more often than not, that's exactly the case. People try to use something that even some of the most highly intelligent people on this earth have very little of an idea in order to try to make themselves sound smart, knowing that nobody would ever be able to prove them wrong. Or if any strides were made that could prove them wrong, chances are they'd be dead by the time that happens, so what the hell are they going to care? But nevertheless, we're focusing strictly on extraterrestrial phenomenon. Some of the conspiracies out there and some of the alleged footage from interviews from extraterrestrials state that they're not essentially from this earth. They are from other times. They are from other dimensions, other universes. Now, there's a lot that needs to be cleared up here, because when people hear alternate dimensions, alternate realities, alternate universes, because of how science fiction writers portrayed everything, a lot of people assume that these terms are interchangeable. They're not. When someone says a being could have another dimension, dimensions are nothing more than ways of measurement. We live in a three-dimensional world that is also influenced by one dimension of time. A lot of science fiction tries to state, well, Kromblipto from the planet of Blipto is from the 99th dimension. That example was more in kids' shows, but it illustrates my point. Mathematically speaking, we can have an infinite number of dimensions. Technically, this is something that can go on forever and ever. But current models of string and superstring theory state that our universe, that creation, existence itself, tops out at about 10 or 12 dimensions. It's usually right around there. We get alternate realities where essentially anything goes. What's really going on, though? Like I said, dimensions are nearly nothing more than ways of measurement. We have one dimension where it's just a dot. 2 dimensions, it's a line. That second dimension is essentially made, technically it's made of an infinite number of first dimensional objects. But for measurement purposes, you have 2 points of one-dimensional dots that connect. Okay, dots are 0 dimension, lines are 1 dimension. Okay, let's clear that up. Now, if you get 2 lines going perpendicular to one another, you start to get a 3-dimensional object. You get... Fuck, I'm starting to fuck this up. I'm sorry. Let me start this over. Dakota, why don't you just pause and, retape? Because, I believe in being real with you. So, a dot is 0 dimensions. We get 2 dots that line up. That's 1 dimension. Okay? Technically, you could be considered an infinite number of 0-dimensional dots that create that line. And in a way, you'd be right. But for mathematical purposes, 2 0-dimensional dots that create that line. Now, you add 2 more 0-dimensional dots and connect them all with lines, you have a 2-dimensional surface. I'm using a whiteboard in order to help me keep track. Now you essentially double up the number of sides, and you can get a 3-dimensional object. You double up the dimensions on that, you can get 4 dimensions, blah, 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 blah. If we have a being that is allegedly from a 5th-dimensional world, what that simply means is that they come from a world that's not much different from ours. You can have several 3-dimensional objects create a 4-dimensional one. Several 4-dimensional objects can create one 5th-dimensional, and so on. Now, it is nearly impossible for us to visualize what this would look like. Say if a being existed in 4 dimensions, they could essentially see inside us and mess around with our internal organs without the need for surgery. And how they would look to us would be kind of funky. And this is why I'm doing the follow-up videos. Essentially, if a higher dimensional being were to try to interact with our 3-dimensional world while staying within their own space, what have you, they're going to come in looking kind of morphed. They're going to look kind of weird. In fact, there is an alien species that's said to come from the 12th dimension, the closest dimensional space to God, to the ultimate creator, to the ultimate Essentially, by the time a being hits 12 dimensions, they are a part of creation itself. They can manipulate anything and everything like they wanted. If they wanted to, let's say, they needed a drink of something, they could technically have it just pop up in their hand. Even though they could technically just will their own systems to where all their needs are satisfied. Now, I'm going off track here. There's actually official FBI classified documents dated roughly in the 1960s that state, and I quote, slightly paraphrasing, that extraterrestrial vehicles are in fact visiting the Earth. Contact was made. These are official FBI documents. You can go onto the official FBI website and do a little searching, and you can find these for yourself without any sort of special hacking. And I'll try to make sure to include links, if not here, to the... I'll try to include links in the follow-up episode. In the follow-up explainer video. Essentially, these documents state that contact was made with the inhabitants of the aircraft. And they said they come from other dimensional worlds looking for some place to live. They're essentially scouting out our planet. And there's also some beings that say they are evolutionary descendants of mankind. And that something happens in our future that destroys most historical records. And they're utilizing these quote-unquote aircraft to travel through time in order to gain this information. So why are we still seeing UFOs? Why is it that the military is freaking out about this? It's because when all things considered, we could technically deal with the Christopher Columbus versus the Native Americans type incident. Where something they've got on them that they have built immunities to could accidentally be brought here and kill all life on Earth. Because we had never been exposed, therefore we could never have built any sort of immunities. Perhaps maybe they tried to help out. And this goes into a lot of ancient alien topics. But the fact remains, unidentified aerial phenomenon as it's being known today is quite real. Extraterrestrials, aliens from other worlds, other dimensions, all signs point to it being real. And that something big is coming our way. And Area 51 is not the place we need to look. Do they have information there? It looks like it, but even Bob Lazar has stated that a lot of alien tech is not kept at that base. So while there's all sorts of weird sightings that go on in that area and several other bases around the world, something is in fact going on. In Area 51, it's not the master. It's not going to be the key to unlocking all these mysteries. Oh, no, no, no. If anybody was actually successful in spotting anything during the so-called raid, it's only going to open up more questions than answers. Because I'm going to point to you this. I'll be honest. Due to Air Force activity in my area, I usually toss aside most UFO reports I receive that take place in my area. And with good reason. I'm not too far from several known testing grounds. And there have been several instances where loud, mysterious booms have taken place that have even damaged homes and property. Because the military was running drills. In fact, during drill weekends, if you happen to be driving around at the right time, you can see a lot of military transport vehicles moving crap around. And I'm just talking about here in southern Idaho. I can only imagine what freaking Nevada spots all the time. And if you talk to several military vets, quite a few of them have had their own encounters with UFOs. That once it was brought up to higher officials, they were told, oh, it's just a test, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Don't worry about it. In the FBI documents, it stated that the beings that have been made contact with did not have malicious intent. They were just simply scouting us out. They were celestial tourists, if you wanted to label it as such. They were just simply space-faring tourists. But according to some conspiracies out there, at least 57 different species of alien have interacted with our world. And some of them don't exactly hint that they want to be buddy-buddy. They may have other intents for us. So I'm sorry that we can't disclose a lot of information here. Because in the reality of it, the rumors that spread help cover up a lot. And when the revelations come forward, it's going to change everything. Because in some cases, there's actually a lot of overlap when it comes to extraterrestrials and other forms of phenomena. Hell, even Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and other varieties of these giant humanoid apes that cover all over the world. Some have even stated that some angels, some demons. Hell, there have been astronauts who spotted what looked like angels flying around the International Space Station and other manned missions. The reality of it is, even the people who investigate these types of phenomena within official government channels, they don't really know what's going on. And yes, we can have all these aliens to say, we come in peace. Even if they're being honest, we can't exactly rule out the possibility that they won't change their mind. This stuff is real, my friends. And it can very well change how we live. And there seems, and if that's the case, why? Some of you might say, oh, why don't they help us stop this? Why don't they help us stop that? Because they don't want us to become needy babies. They want us to be able to stand on our own. It seems that there seems to be some sort of laws out there, and honestly, sounds like some of these are inspired by people that watch too much Star Trek. But it seems like there's some sort of pact that apparently gets broken under severe circumstances. That unless something big happens, ETs stay out of our business. And perhaps they're monitoring us because they see potential in us. We'll never know unless we have a chance to actually physically sit down with these beings. And who's to say it's not going to be a situation like the movie War of the Worlds where microbes within the air and water here on Earth could be potentially deadly to them. There's too many factors here. And for those of you dumb enough to actually try to see them aliens, you are not going to be ready for when the truth comes out. That being the case, next week we're going to talk a bit more about these alien species that have allegedly been interacting with our planet. We're going to talk a little bit more about where they allegedly come from, presidential interactions, and more. And like I said, there could be more episodes that come from this. So that's where I'm going to close it for today. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, wherever. We're on all major social media networks. If you got any questions, feel free to ask. Be kind to one another. And real quick before I go, if you have not heard the news yet, be sure to try to check out the latest episode of Drain the Oceans from National Geographic. It discusses the Loch Ness Monster. And guess who makes an appearance? That's right, your favorite paranormal researcher, investigator, and supernatural hunter has made an appearance on National Geographic. And honestly, I would like to be able to make more appearances to help spread more information and get the help discover what is true out there about all this stuff. So if any of you had any connections or know how to set something up, let me know. Be sure to tune in next week. The follow-up video that I talked about, that's going to go more into dimensional spaces and how these extraterrestrials may work. It might also go into a bit of ghost phenomenon. That is going to be up and running by this Monday at the latest. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. It's going to be on my YouTube channel. I'll see you next time, my friends.